What's up, everyone? Welcome to another edition of Hardcore Challenge Live. I am the Commish, and this is the official webcast of the Hardcore Challenge, which, as we all know, is the pinnacle of fantasy football competition. And we are in the divisional round of the largest pool of owners that we've ever had in the playoffs in the history of the Hardcore Challenge. 12 owners, 2 conferences. Now it's down to 8 owners. Only 4 left in each conference as we're in the divisional round of the AFC and the NFC. The defending champ fell last week in a shootout. That means somebody new, at least new from last year, will raise the cup. Is it somebody new altogether? Because we do have a couple former champions in the mix still. So it's a possibility of a repeat champion. But there are also a handful of new owners. First time in the playoffs. First time in the league. And first time in the playoffs. So we have an array of different matchups. So let's start with one from each conference first, shall we? Let's start with, and I'm going to say my premier matchup, because there's really a premier matchup in both conferences, I would say. Although any one of these 4 teams could easily, on either side, end up being the champion. But let's start with Bison Broncos against the Knox Vegas Anarchy. Bison Broncos, obviously Kevin is a new owner this season. He grabbed the first round bye, bumped Tom from his streak of consecutive division titles, and knocked him from a first round bye, put him into a first round matchup that actually ended up eliminating him. So in a sense, he did still have a hand in ending Tom's season by forcing him down in the seeding. But the only time that these two have faced off, which was a regular season matchup, was a very, very close matchup. 117 to 115 as Bison Broncos pulled out a 2-point victory. Now this win was in week 10. That was the last time Knox Vegas Anarchy has lost. They have not lost since. And they've had a week off. Not that that really matters in fantasy football. But it's just 1 week without stress of losing. Or worrying about it. So that was their last loss. And it was a very close game. Since then, they've been on a roll. And does it continue? Does it continue? Bison Broncos is a team that historically has done well in the playoffs. They've been to 2 Super Bowls. They've won 1. They've led the league in scoring even on a year that they didn't win the Super Bowl. Has always consistently done well. So the fact that he is squeaking in somewhat under the radar, I wouldn't say squeaking in, but he's somewhat flying under the radar in the AFC, coming in at the 6th seed. But it was very close between him and the Stone Ponies all the way down the stretch. So it's a very interesting matchup when you take a look at these two. Let's go to the game center here. So you got Tom Brady against Simeon. Those are your quarterbacks. That's your quarterback matchup, possibly. Is Bison Broncos really going to go with Simeon? I mean, that's really all they got. Wentz is down. That's a big shot to them, as another playoff contender in the NFC lost Wentz as well. That was a big hit for both. Two owners right now. One on both sides of the spectrum. So he's forced to go with Simeon. That is a tough hit. They both have a solid squad. That's why they're in the divisional round. So I will come back to that one, and I will make my pick shortly. Now, I will put it out there, if either one of the owners of the respective teams that I just spoke about, Knox Vegas Anarchy, or Bison Broncos, would like to come on, I will open up the forum. You have to be watching through a handheld device, through your Facebook app. Turn your device horizontally and hit accept, and I will gladly bring you in the show. Let's see, we've got one of them out there, so we don't need to say any of that nonsense, but we'll see if we can pull one of them in as we work our way through here. So as we're queuing that up, seeing if this works out, we will move on and touch on one of the NFC. Oh, it worked! It worked.
There we go.
All
it's
right.
finally going. I got the new phone, guys. Well, how's it going?
You come off a first-round bye, and you get the 6th seed. It's supposed to be the easiest matchup, so. And they lost their quarterback.
Well, I got lucky on that one because this was one that I was hoping to have come back around, because losing by 2 points,
yeah,
I was pretty irritated by that. So I'm also not necessarily looking past them. I mean, I know that this is going to be a pretty formidable opponent, even with Wentz going down, but that definitely works in my favor quite a bit. So yeah, I'm excited for it. It'll be a good match.
It should be a good match. He still has a fairly solid team, minus Simeon. I mean, that's why he's still here, obviously. So
exactly.
Obviously, you've looked over his team. What do you see? Do you see this as a high scoring matchup? Do you think he'll be able to keep pace with your team? Do you think your team has a good matchup this week?
I think it could be a trap game, no doubt. I mean, I think that on paper it looks like I've got it. At the end of the day, though, it's the any given Sunday. Wentz went down. You know, it could be the same thing for Brady. It could be the same thing for Bell. I know Bell got jacked up in his knee a little bit.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it could go either way, but I think on paper, as it sits right now, I think I got a really good shot at it. I think it's going to be high scoring. It'll probably be, I'd probably say 125, 145, but I think there's probably going to be a 20-point spread, and there's going to be maybe one or two players that are going to make the difference.
Yeah, well, that seems to have been the way it's been. That's the way it was last week. It seemed like two big players were carrying a lot of the teams. But you guys got some interesting matchups. So this is going to be this should be an interesting game. All of these have some really interesting matchups. So while I got you on, I'll give you the forum. Is there anything you would like to say to your opponent, Kent? He is a former champion. Kent was the 2015 champion. He's been to the Super Bowl twice, so he has got it done before. Anything you'd like to say to your opponent?
Well, yeah, I mean, let's have a good game on this one, but at the same time, I'm looking at this and I'm just blessed to be in the playoffs my first year. I mean, I know that there's been a lot of people that have not had a chance to make the playoffs, so just being in the playoffs is fantastic. I'm looking forward to a good matchup, and I know I've been kind of poking fun at Tom because he's in my division, and but Tom, it was a good season, and I'm looking forward to the next one too. So.
Yeah, Tom his turn was done. Your turn was done, Tom. You had a great run.
We got somebody new now. That's right. That's right.
You could not repeat back to back. That would no. That's not allowed to happen. So you had to lose.
I love you, Tom. You're a good guy, though.
Yes. Oh, Jesus Christ. His streak.
No, it'll be good.
And you ended his streak in division titles, too, which that needed to end, too. He had some streaks he needed to end. He needed reset.
That's right. We bring it back to the U.S., baby. We bring it back to the U.S.
He needed reset. Well, all right. Well, good luck,
there
Kevin. Congratulations, man. You made it into the playoffs the first season. Like you said, there's some guys that have been in the league a long time, and have struggled, Corey, to make the playoffs. And
Hi, Corey.
so,
Yeah.
but congratulations and good luck. Good luck this week.
Thanks,
Because
buddy.
you're going to have a
Hey, thank you very much. We'll talk
whoever
to you
you
guys later.
got next week, if you make it, is going to be tough. So,
Yeah. Matt, I'm hoping. I mean, it's going to be a good one. There's a part of me that really wants to play Matt again, but man, Bleeding Green, that's a tough matchup. I want to make sure that I'm going through the best of the best on this one. So
I don't know who.
if I'm lucky to win,
I don't know who's better out
I
of
want
those
to
two
face
right
the best.
now. It's a toss-up
There you go.
two right now. They're both super hot at the right time. So, well, good luck, Kevin.
Amen.
Good luck.
Thanks, guys. We'll talk to you later, man. Bye.
All right. Moving on to the NFC, we've got Donkey Punch. Oh, seriously, let's first Vandalay Industries, who has backed into the playoffs. They lost 3 out of 4 down the stretch before their playoff win. Now, since their playoff win, they lost Wentz. It's just not looking like a good matchup for Rob, facing off against Mo Betta Butta. Mo has won 5 out of the last 6, plus a big win in the last week that took the division and the first round bye away from Donkey Punch. So Mo is one of the hottest teams in the league right now, as Mo Betta Butta is getting basically the weakest team in the playoffs, period. Vandalay Industries wins a 114-102 game against the Pack Attack is Back. They're by far the weakest team in the field, and they lost arguably one of their biggest guns in that win. Now going up against one of the hottest teams in the NFC. That's not looking like a good matchup. Now, jumping into two of the more marquee games, I would say, only because they are holding the hottest teams at the time of the playoffs. Yeah, Mo, you lined up for it. You lined up for a nice one in the divisional round. You did get the 6th seed and by far the weakest 6th seed. And you caught him limping in. Now, the Beaver Street Roar was in the playoffs last year and was in Hardcore Bowl 8 facing off against, then I'm thinking Arby's, who changed his name to Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood this season. And came up short in last year's Hardcore Bowl 8. But they're back in this playoff, coming off a bye, and are the number 1 team in the entire league. They're not number 1 in scoring, but they are number 1 in the entire league as they come in. At an impressive 11-2. Now, this by far is the matchup of the 2 hottest teams. As you've got the Beaver Street Roar, who's on a 5-game winning streak. They're 11-2. You've got Bleeding Green, who's won 6 out of their last 7, including just bouncing the defending champ. So this is by far the 2 hottest teams in the AFC facing off. Now, of course, you've got Las Vegas Anarchy is going to have something to say about that if they win in the next round. Yes, that is the best record. 11-2 is the best record. That's the best record. Next best was 10-3, which was Gary, number 1 in the NFC. Those were your only double-digit win teams. Skull Crushers in the NFC, Beaver Street Roar in the AFC. These teams, obviously, the Bleeding Green, new owner, so they've only faced off once. Beaver Street Roar, 148-125 victory in week 4. That was a long time ago. Since then, Bleeding Green, like I said, has rattled off 6 of the last 7 victories, including bouncing the defending champ in the first round of the playoffs. So they have obviously shown they're a formidable opponent. They just put up 180-plus points, and they're coming in. Guns blazing. But the Beaver Street Roar, like I said, is the number 1 seed in the entire league. 11-2. The only 11-win team. One of only 2 double-digit win teams in the entire league. They got there last year. They have a history, as they have made 3 playoff appearances, won 2 division titles back-to-back in 15 and 16, as well as their Super Bowl appearance last season. They do have 2 playoff victories under their belt, so they obviously have the experience, and they've been hot all season. They're playing a team that's even just a little hotter right now. So that's a very interesting matchup. A very interesting matchup. And you have almost the same thing going on in the NFC, as the 2 teams that down the stretch were the, by far, heads and tails above the rest. Donkey Punch slipped up in the final week. But up until then, they had won 8 in a row. And then they bounced back and put up 175 points in the first round of the playoffs. To show you that it was just a slip. They're still solid. Skull Crushers, 6 wins in a row. They also lost in the final week of the season to drop to 10-3. But they've had a week off to think about it. How do they bounce back after their winning streak ending? You've got number 1 against the number 5 seed. But we all know Donkey Punch really isn't the number 5 seed. That's just where they happen to end up. Because they were by far, with their 8-game winning streak after starting the season at 1-3, by far one of the hottest teams in the league. So you got Donkey Punch against Skull Crushers, as I would say your premier matchup in the NFC. And your premier matchup in the AFC is the Beaver Street Roar against Bleeding Green. Those down the stretch have been your 4 hottest teams. Now, Mo Better Butter and the Knox Vegas Anarchy have both been on buys. And they both ended up with 6 seeds. So they may have both ended up with the easier road to the playoffs, even though the other 2 guys are actually the number 1 seeds. Isn't it funny how it works out that way sometimes? So actually the guys who were the number 1 seeds end up with the tougher matchups than the guys who came in with the 2 seed. They end up with the 6 seeds. It's interesting how it works out sometimes. My picks. My picks. Let's start with the AFC. Bison Broncos, the Knox Vegas Anarchy. I think the loss of Wentz is going to be too much for the Bison Broncos. And I'm picking Kevin to move on to the championship game in the AFC. As we will have some new blood. Possibly. In the NFC, Vandalay Industries has already been limping into the playoffs. They pulled out a 114-102 victory in the week one. They lost Carson Wentz on the way. And they're going up against Mo Better, who has been putting up points. Mo takes it. And also another new owner will move on in the NFC into the championship game. 2 new owners. What's up with us veterans? My God. We really... I had a terrible season. I ain't gonna lie. It was very disappointing. It was injury laden. So I take some solace in that. And I did end up with 3 first-round draft picks for next year. So it wasn't all bad. It wasn't all bad. But injuries killed me. Injuries killed me. Losses directly related to injuries. Now in the 2 big games, the Beaver Street Roar against Bleeding Green in the AFC. You know Beaver Street Roar wants to get back to the Super Bowl, and they're close. This is their first playoff game of the season. First round bye, number 1 seed. Bleeding Green looks tough. Bleeding Green looks tough. Let's take a look at this one a little closer, shall we? Let me take a peek at this one just a second. We'll look at this one again. Because it's picked very close as well. Phillip Rivers is one of the keys to this game, I believe, for Bleeding Green. He's at Kansas City. Now that could go one of 2 ways. It could go real bad or it can go real good for him. The Beaver Street Roar has to roll with Kirk Cousins. At home against the Cardinals. I'm picking Bleeding Green. I don't think the Beaver Street Roar gets a chance to avenge last year's loss, and I think they leave this season without a playoff victory. I'm picking Bleeding Green. I think he's got favorable matchups, and I'm picking Bleeding Green. So I'm picking Bleeding Green against the Knox Vegas Anarchy. 2 new owners facing off in the AFC. In Donkey Punch versus Skull Crushers. It's going to be a rematch of the division showdown in the final week of the regular season in the NFC Championship, as Donkey Punch will face off against Mo Better in the NFC Championship. That is my prediction. We're going to have 3 owners, new owners, in the championship game. 1 defending champ, former champ in Donkey Punch, and 3 new owners. That will be your field of 4. We'll see if I'm right. Who knows? Anything can happen on any given Sunday. And we all know that. Anything can happen on any given Sunday. So, good luck to all of you. Congratulations for making it this far. You are 2 wins away from $500. You can look at it that simply. Because that's the truth. You win this game and you win the next game, you've won your conference and you've won $500. And then you're 1 win away from adding another $500 to that. And then you get the ring, then you get the cup, and you're forever a champion. And then you can talk shit to guys like me, like Tom did earlier, because I haven't won one. Damn you, Tom. At least I've been there. I just lost. The overall winner gets a total of $1,000. So if you win your conference, you get $500. Now you're not getting $1,000 if you win. You get a total of $1,000. So you get another $500. So you would get $1,000. It's $1,000. So basically, it's $1,000 to win, $500 to come in second, and that's it. So if you win your conference, you're gonna get $500. But if you win the Super Bowl, the Hardcore Bowl, then you add another $500 to that, and you're gonna get $1,000. But then you get the ring, the customized Super Bowl ring, and you get the trophy, and you get allowed to leave your mark upon it before you send it back, with whatever it may be. God, the thing's getting all sorts of shit stuck on it now. But that's what you're playing for, and you guys are very, very close. And congratulations for all of you that are still fighting. I'm sure you all are ready for the challenge. Good luck. Game on.